Prepare to have your health questions answered here on Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley, owner of Binkley Healing Center in downtown Ventura. Now, here's Dr. Todd.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley, board-certified doctor of non-force chiropractic and practitioner of functional medicine. The focus of today's talk is going to be about dementia, about mild cognitive impairment, the earliest form. I've been getting a lot of questions about this. What is the difference between Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, frontal lobe dementia? Okay, not everybody's been asking me all of those specific details, but mainly just about, what can I do? Alzheimer's is horrible. You lose your memory. It's really stressful on the families, more so on the families of the people who get the dementia than it is on the person themselves oftentimes. So we're going to talk a lot about that. I wish I could forecast that I could say at the end of the talk, I'm going to give you some glowing examples, testimonials of patients that have made dramatic recoveries. And I'm sorry, I don't have those because, unfortunately, most people wait till it's too late to make a dramatic recovery from dementia. We're going to talk a lot about why that is. But there is some exciting news. I do have scores of patients, maybe over 100 or two, not thousands certainly, but many patients who have made some improvement. People are frustrated that when they start to notice the first signs of memory loss and other symptoms associated with any form of dementia, Alzheimer's is just the most common. Oftentimes, at that point, 30%, this is a little known fact, when you first start to notice that persistent memory loss, if you forget where you put your keys once in a while, it's not a big deal. There are tests for this. Maybe we'll have time to talk about those standard tests they do to diagnose mild cognitive impairment, the precursor, and full-blown dementia of any type. But if you have memory loss, everyone loses their keys once in a while. What really matters is when you have that persistent, progressive memory loss, where you and especially those around you notice that you're repeating yourself or forgetting things, and it's becoming more consistent and getting worse. And unfortunately, this is the worst part. By the time you get to that point, you've usually lost 30% of that part of the brain, the part of the brain just inside your temples called the hippocampus, where memories must be encoded before they're stored. This is really important to understand, especially for if you have a loved one with dementia. This is really important to understand. We experience, normal human beings throughout our lives, we experience that we see something happen, we say something, we do something, and we automatically remember it, especially if it was something we just did 30 seconds ago or 5 minutes ago. It's just automatic. Of course you would remember that. You just said it. You just did it. Well, when that happens, it's a two-step process that has to work, or it won't. And the two steps are anything that you experience goes through this hippocampus, this part of your brain just inside your temple, to get processed and sorted, and it's like a filing clerk part of your brain that decides where this memory should be stored. And then it's sent to the library, to the storage facility up in the higher parts of your brain for long-term storage. That's where long-term memories are stored. Well, all memories are stored in parts of the brain that are higher up. So the part of your brain that decides where to store that, the hippocampus, it's called, just inside the temple, that part has to work for you to remember anything, even if it just happened 30 seconds ago or 5 minutes ago. And that is one of the most common areas that becomes degraded. You lose cells in that part of your brain. It stops working. It stops recording and filing. It stops filing the memories, the experiences that you have ongoingly. So anybody who has a loved one with dementia, I hope it helps to understand this. I'm sure you don't understand it just from me talking about it for a couple of minutes, but you can look it up. There's some great resources out there. Email me with questions. It's really helpful to understand this, both for people who are first starting to notice cognitive impairment, but especially for the loved ones who are noticing that someone that they love can't remember something they said 30 seconds ago, or who is repeating themselves. If the hippocampus stops working, it doesn't matter that someone just said something or just did something or just asked you something, because memories are no longer being filed properly. They go in and they get stuck, and then they just vanish because they haven't been stored. So the good news is, anything you've ever heard of to increase your cardiovascular health, and we hear about these things all the time, the entire month of February, I talked about things you can do to prevent and reverse cardiovascular disease in 3 simple steps. Keep the pipes clear, keep the pressure low, and keep the pump strong. So you keep the pipes clear by reducing plaque formation and reversing it. It is actually possible to reverse plaque formation. You keep the pressure low by doing all kinds of things. That go review the previous episodes on ways that you might not have heard to reduce your blood pressure apart from taking medication. But if you need medication, this is one of the medications that you definitely want to take. You definitely want to check your blood pressure. Make sure that you're keeping it below 140/90, preferably below 130/90 if you want to maintain your heart health, but also your brain health. So keep the pipes clear, keep the pressure low, and keep the pump strong. Exercise is, of course, the way you keep the pump strong. The best kind of exercise to do is the one that you will do with the least amount of effort, or, that just puts the fewest hurdles in front of you. Something you enjoy, something as simple as walking. If you're young and you love, doing really intensive exercise, running marathons, doing intensive workouts, that's the best form for you. If you're older, maybe just walking. For most older people, just going for a walk. The nice thing about walking is it doesn't require a gym membership. It doesn't require any special equipment. You just put on some shoes and go outside. And if you are looking for an excuse to walk or a reminder to walk, it's always nice. They've even done studies on this. Get a dog. There was one of the best ones I heard was about some stockbrokers in New York City. These are really, really high stress people that have high risk of dropping dead from a heart attack in their 40s or 50s even, and stockbrokers who got a dog, I don't know, I don't have the study in front of me, but had a dramatically reduced risk because of the comradeship of the dog, I suppose, was partly something to do with it. I suspect it's largely just because it forces them to go out and walk the dog. Swimming is also an excellent form of exercise if you have access to a pool, because it works your entire body. And if you're older or if you have physical limitations, just the buoyancy and the warmth of the water can help a lot of people with arthritic conditions or other joint-involved conditions like multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis. So swimming is wonderful if you have access to a pool. And of course, in most places, there are public pools that you can gain access to for free. Oftentimes, it's not easy to get to a pool. So another form that's really important to stress, a form of exercise that basically everyone really should consider doing as much as they can, is resistance training, strength training, lifting weights. So resistance training is any muscular exercise. The classic form is lifting weights, but you don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't even have to join a gym to lift weights. You can lift your own body weight by doing push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups. You can get your own, modest set of dumbbells to lift weights at home. It's a good idea to get some instruction on how to do that properly if you have, any arthritis or other issues that might cause you to do such things improperly or stress your shoulders or your back or your neck or other parts of your body. But any kind of resistance training, incorporating some kind of resistance training into your routine is really, really important. Now, you may have heard there was a study that was on the radio, on the news today. It just published in the Journal of American Cardiology based on an analysis of 400,000 adults, U.S. adults, aged 27 to 61 over 2 decades, showed over 2 decades, especially about the benefits to women. It benefits men and women both, obviously, but especially women. Aged 27 to 61, 400,000 adults, the women were 24% less likely than those who did not exercise to experience death from any cause. Men were 15% less likely. Women also had a 36% reduced risk of a fatal heart attack, stroke, or other cardiovascular event. Men had a 14% reduced risk of a fatal heart attack, stroke, or other cardiovascular event from exercising regularly. And these are just statistics on people who did regular exercise, basically any form of exercise. But it gets even better. The strength training, so the people who did any kind of strength training, resistance training, lifting weights, using resistance bands, using your own body weight, the people who participated in strength training exercises had a 19% reduced risk of death, women, and 11% reduced death for men from any cause compared to those who didn't do strength training. So all cause of death was reduced by doing strength training exercises, 19% for women, 11% for men. But here's the best part. Women who did strength training saw an even greater reduced risk of cardiovascular deaths, 30%. So women who do any kind of regular strength training, there is a certain amount that you have to do, but it's not big. The details are in that study somewhere. Email me if you want the exact details. But it's the typical recommendations that most people would do 2 or 3 days a week. I'll come back to that if we have time for it. But basically, 30% reduced risk of cardiovascular related deaths for women who did strength training, any kind of resistance training, and an 11% reduction for men. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley, and you're listening to Safe, Effective, Natural Solutions to Almost Any Health Challenge. The subject of today's talk is cognitive impairment, mild cognitive impairment, and dementia. Don't wait till it's too late. That's the main message. Most of the people who come to me with complaints of cognitive impairment, with memory loss, with early signs of dementia, or especially advanced dementia, most people wait till it's too late. But the good news is most people are familiar, and I've been talking about this today, the benefits of exercise. Anything you've ever heard that increases your heart health also increases your brain health. Your brain commands 20% of the output of your heart, 20% of the oxygen delivered to your body by the pump goes to your brain. And most dementia is vascular dementia. There's a whole bunch of distinctions, different types of diagnoses for dementia: Lewy body dementia, frontal lobe dementia, Alzheimer's being the most common. And there is one that's specifically called vascular dementia because of the effects of loss of blood flow to the brain. But from a functional medicine perspective, if you want to learn how to, and so those distinctions are important. Or if you're going to use drugs, then those distinctions are important. If you're going to use other forms of medical care, as medical therapy advances, maybe those distinctions will become even greater at some point. But the bottom line is, from a functional medicine perspective, it doesn't matter what kind of dementia you have. The problem is it's all vascular dementia. All dementia is the loss of brain cells and very important specific parts of your brain, the part of your brain where memories are filed and then stored. Loss of total brain mass in several parts, if not all parts of your brain. And a lot of that is directly reduced to lack of circulation to the brain. When you lose circulation to any part of your brain, you're going to lose brain cells, and that part of your brain is going to shrink, and therefore that part of your brain is going to stop working the way it used to, and it's very difficult to fix that once it's gone beyond a certain stage. This is why most medications for Alzheimer's don't work. Aricept is the most famous one. There are others in development all the time. There's all kinds of research that's been progressing sort of for decades now that identify what actually causes the damage to the brain: tau proteins, beta amyloid plaques, etc. And there are drugs that have successfully removed the neurofibril tangles, the tau proteins, the beta amyloid plaque, and all the other, several other things that have been identified. They've literally developed drugs that can remove these things that have been identified in the brains of people who have Alzheimer's. Unfortunately, they don't prove that they're only able to document that on autopsy after the person has died. But the bad news is these drugs don't work. They're not a cure. They don't even reverse the disease. They slow its progression slightly, and they have side effects. And the most recent one had such minor effects and was so ridiculously overpriced that even the medical community, the neurological community, cried foul. And who knows what's going to go on with that. I forget the name of that drug, but just look up most recent dementia drug and you can find it. But hopefully, the point is, don't wait till it's too late. So when you're at the very beginning of showing any signs, it's important to do what you can, get tested. So here's a couple things you can do. Now, most importantly, prevent it by just doing the basic things to keep yourself healthy. Anything as I said before, to keep your heart healthy will also keep your brain healthier than it would otherwise be. So keep the pipes clear, keep the pump strong, keep the pressure low. There are some supplements that I recommend for everyone for general health, which includes the brain. The brain is the most sensitive organ in any organ in your body to nutrient deficiencies. So the three things I recommend anyone supplement, even if we don't do any testing, I can just tell you 99% chance you're not getting enough of this from your diet. They are, number one, vitamin D. 5,000 units of vitamin D is the standard dose for adults to maintain a blood level of vitamin D that keeps all of your body's systems working as well as they should and as well as they could. And most importantly, your immune system. The standard recommendations for vitamin D barely prevent rickets. They'll prevent your bones from collapsing. They don't even effectively reduce your risk of osteoporosis. They prevent rickets when you're a child and early adult. But 5,000 units of vitamin D is the standard dose. Number two, fish oil. So the omega-3 fatty acids that are only in the ocean, not the ones that are in plants. There's no plant-based source, abundant plant-based source of EPA and DHA. These are the omega-3s that only come from the ocean. So you can only get them from fish or algae. So if you want to supplement them, you can only get them from fish oil supplements or algae oil supplements. And those are super important. Your brain is made of fat, is mostly fat and water and some collagen, connective tissue, mostly fat and water. And 25% of the fat that makes up your brain is made from docosahexaenoic acid, this omega-3 fatty acid that you can only get from the ocean. And no one, unless you're going to eat a piece of salmon every day, or some tuna, which you shouldn't because of the mercury in the tuna. I recommend only eating tuna once a month because there's a lot of mercury in tuna because it's a huge fish. Or sardines are great. Sardines and anchovies are small fish, so you can eat sardines every day if you really like them. I eat them 2 or 3 times a week because they're delicious, especially if you get the ones that are packed in olive oil and put some capers on them, or a little something else for flavor. But most people are not going to do that. Most people are not going to eat oily fish every day. And most other fish don't even if you eat a lot of fish, there's not that many fish that have a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. Basically, the only ones that have a lot are salmon. The only common ones are salmon, tuna, anchovies, and sardines. There's a few others, but there's just not a lot of essential fatty acids, EPA and DHA, the omega-3s you need for brain health, cardiovascular health, its anti-inflammatory effects, and immune system boosting effects. Look up if you look on PubMed for all the benefits of omega-3 fatty acids, all of those benefits are only for those 2 omega-3s that you can really only get from the ocean. Number 3, a good multivitamin. So all of these reactions that have to take place to produce neurotransmitters and keep every part of your body, including your brain, functioning, require cofactors to drive those chemical reactions. And most of those cofactors are B vitamins and minerals. So you can get B vitamins from food. There's lots of good food sources for B vitamins like liver and whole grains and vegetables in general, and minerals. So the main missing thing for most people is minerals. Most people, I recommend a good multivitamin and mineral supplement. How do you tell if one is good? It should be at least 2 or 3 and preferably 4 capsules a day. I'm aware of a couple of good top quality, they're usually more expensive, multivitamins that are 2 huge tablets, 2 huge horse pills a day. Most people have trouble taking things that are that big. So 4 regular size capsules is what a good multivitamin usually looks like, because the plant-based forms of minerals that most of us don't get enough of in our diet are bulky. They take up space. They will not fit into a 1-a-day multivitamin. So please do not buy a 1-a-day multivitamin anywhere. It's mostly useless because it just doesn't have the types of nutrients that your body absorbs well, and not enough of them. So if you want to prevent, do the best you can to reduce your risk of dementia and maintain health, reduce your risk of all kinds of other diseases, but we're focusing on brain health today, then take 5,000 units of vitamin D, about 1.5 grams, or maybe even twice that, depending on your age. If you're already noticing some symptoms, if you already have cardiovascular disease, if you're overweight, if you're over 60, maybe even over 50, I might recommend, or if you have any familial history of cardiovascular disease, heart attack, strokes, of dementia, then I'd probably recommend you at least double that and take 3 grams, 3,000 milligrams combined EPA and DHA. So when you look at your labels, don't take just 3 grams of fish oil, but 3 grams of EPA and DHA combined. There are several other supplements that can help improve brain health, to help reduce your risk, reverse some of the damage. We won't have time to go into all of those today, so I'll save those for next week. But I did want, in the time that we have left today, to talk about another thing you can do that might motivate you to take better care of yourself, and that is to get the APOE gene test. APOE, that's the gene test that measures your risk of Alzheimer's. So ask your doctor to order the APOE gene test. Most people have, it comes in 3 forms. APOE gene comes in 3 forms, 2, 3, and 4. So the APOE3 is the most common one. Only about 5 to 10% of people have the APOE2 form, and it's believed to have some protection against the disease, but it's rare. And most commonly, people have the APOE3 form. That's the most common form, and some authors believe it has a neutral effect, some that it also confers some risk. The worst one, of course, is APOE4. So having one of the APOE4 genes increases your risk by something like 4-fold, and having 2, we all have 2 of these APOE genes. So if you have 2 APOE4s, I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but also basically if you have the number 4 version, 2 of those, then it increases your risk something like 10-fold. So the research is constantly being updated on this, and I'll try and find the latest statistics and review this on next week's episode as well. I wanted to be sure and get it in today. Get that gene test. So ask your doctor if they'll order it. If you have a family history of Alzheimer's, then that should be a good enough reason to get them to order it. But of course, it's not routinely ordered. Most doctors don't order it because gene tests are very expensive. If I just send you to Quest or LabCorp to order that gene test, it's something like $700 or $800. But there is good news. If you've ever heard about 23andMe, most people have heard about the Ancestry.com and 23andMe to find out your family history. Ancestry does not, but 23andMe does do also health-related genes. So for $150, you can get a panel of, I think it's over a dozen now, something maybe 14 really important gene tests done for $150. And I recommend everyone do this because it's such a great deal. For $150, you can get thousands, literally thousands of dollars worth of gene tests, including the Alzheimer's gene and genes that identify iron overload and clotting factors that increase your risk of heart attack and stroke, and a whole bunch of other really important gene tests. And each one of these tests individually costs hundreds of dollars, and you can get a good slate of them, including the Alzheimer's gene. Is worth it just to get the Alzheimer's test for $150 from the health portion of 23andMe. And when you get that test, it's important, as with any gene test, it's important to know that you can have 2 of the worst versions, the number 4, and still not get Alzheimer's. So genes are just important things to know about, to motivate you, know your risk factors, and take better care of yourself. They don't cause disease in and of themselves. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley. You've been listening to Safe, Effective Natural Solutions. Do something this weekend to be healthier than you were last weekend. And please tune in next Friday at 4 p.m. Have a fantastic weekend.
You've been listening to Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley. If you have a health question you want discussed on the show, email your health questions to Dr. Binkley at binkleyhealingcenter.com. Take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions for yourself and for your loved ones, because our health matters. Join him next Friday at 4 p.m. for Safe, Effective Natural Solutions, right here on 98.3 The Word, KDAR.